The period of the late 1970s and early 1980s saw a renewed escalation in tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both sides were engaged in a massive arms race, with each seeking to outdo the other in terms of nuclear weapons and military technology. The US was also involved in a number of proxy wars around the world, including in Afghanistan and Central America. The situation began to change in the mid-1980s, with the rise of a new Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev came to power in 1985, and he was determined to reform the Soviet Union and improve its relations with the West. He introduced two key policies: perestroika, which aimed to restructure the Soviet economy and make it more efficient, and glasnost, which called for greater transparency and openness in Soviet society. Gorbachev's reforms signaled a shift in Soviet foreign policy as well. He sought to reduce tensions with the United States and improve relations between the two superpowers. In November 1985, Gorbachev and US President Ronald Reagan met for the first time at a summit in Geneva, Switzerland. Although the summit did not produce any major agreements, it set the stage for future negotiations between the two leaders. In 1986, Gorbachev and Reagan met again, this time in Reykjavik, Iceland. The two leaders discussed a number of important issues, including the possibility of reducing nuclear weapons arsenals. At one point, Reagan proposed the total elimination of nuclear weapons, but Gorbachev was not willing to agree to such a proposal at that time. Despite the lack of a formal agreement, the Reykjavik summit was a key moment in the history of the Cold War, as it demonstrated that the two sides were willing to negotiate and work towards a reduction in tensions. In 1987, the two sides did reach an agreement when Gorbachev and Reagan signed the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. The treaty eliminated an entire class of nuclear weapons, and was seen as a major step towards reducing the risk of nuclear war. Meanwhile, events were unfolding in Eastern Europe that would eventually lead to the end of the Cold War. In Poland, the Solidarity movement led by Lech Walesa successfully negotiated for free elections, marking the end of communist rule in the country. In Hungary, the government opened its borders with Austria, allowing thousands of East Germans to escape to the West. In November of 1989, the Berlin Wall, which had divided the city since 1961, finally came down. The fall of the wall was a momentous event that symbolized the end of the Cold War. It was followed by a series of other events that brought about the collapse of communist regimes throughout Eastern Europe, including in Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Bulgaria. The end of the Cold War was not without its challenges, however. In the Soviet Union, Gorbachev's reforms led to widespread unrest and political instability. In August of 1991, a group of hardliners in the Soviet government attempted a coup against Gorbachev. The coup was ultimately unsuccessful, but it signaled the end of the Soviet era. In December of that year, the leaders of the Soviet republics announced the formation of the Commonwealth of Independent States, effectively ending the Soviet Union as a political entity. The end of the Cold War had significant implications for global politics. With the fall of the Soviet Union, the United States emerged as the world's sole superpower. The dissolution of the Soviet Union led to significant changes in the geopolitical landscape, including the expansion of NATO and the growth of American influence in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. The end of the Cold War also brought about a period of rapid globalization, with increased economic and cultural exchange between countries around the world. However, the end of the Cold War did not bring about an end to conflict and tension in the world. The 1990s saw a number of conflicts, including the Gulf War and the breakup of Yugoslavia, and tensions between the United States and other countries continued to simmer. The events of September 11, 2001 brought a new dimension to global politics, with the US launching its war on terror in response to the terrorist attacks. In recent years, tensions between the United States and Russia have once again been on the rise, with both sides engaging in a new arms race and engaging in proxy wars in Syria and Ukraine. Despite the ongoing tensions, however, the end of the Cold War remains a key moment in modern history, one that brought about significant changes to the political, economic, and social landscape of the world. In conclusion, the last years of the Cold War saw a shift in Soviet foreign policy under Mikhail Gorbachev, as he sought to reduce tensions with the United States and improve relations between the two superpowers. The signing of the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in 1987 and the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 marked significant moments in the history of the Cold War. The end of the Cold War led to significant changes in global politics, including the emergence of the United States as the world's sole superpower and the rise of globalization. Despite ongoing tensions between the United States and Russia, the end of the Cold War remains a significant moment in modern history, one that has had far-reaching implications for the world as a whole.